Hey, church, welcome to Small Group Sunday, and thanks for getting together again to talk about God and the kingdom and scriptures. And this week, we're talking about being devoted to one another, being devoted to fellowship. Christians have often used the term devotion to speak about, a special time that we set aside to focus on God each day. But when the Bible talks about devotion, the word has a much wider meaning. In the Old Testament, objects could be devoted to the Lord. The Israelites could devote anything that they owned to God, whether that was a human being or an animal or family land, and the devoted thing would become most holy to the Lord. That's what Leviticus 27:28 says. Aaron was told in Numbers that everything in Israel that is devoted to the Lord belonged to the Levites in place of their inheritance of land. The practice of setting aside the things we own, the money we have, or the time and strength that we have as something devoted to God can be clearly seen throughout the Bible. But we have to be careful. We have to be careful not to use devotion language as an excuse to be greedy and selfish. Jesus was critical of the Jewish tradition of korban, in which you could declare something that you owned as a gift devoted to God that you just hadn't given up yet. So you didn't have to use it to take care of your parents if they were in need. But you know what you could do with it? You could use it as collateral for a loan so that, you didn't have to give up the korban thing, but you could spend the money that you borrowed using the korban thing for collateral. So, yeah. They were ignoring the fifth commandment to honor their father and their mother, and they were taking advantage of their devotion to God to enrich themselves. We see a similar story in Acts chapter 5 when Ananias and Sapphira sold a piece of property and told the church that they devoted the whole thing to the Lord when they didn't. They secretly kept some money back for themselves. They lied to God and they died. If we decide that something is devoted to God, that's serious business. That thing is set aside and holy and should not be misused. If it is misused by us or others, then there are consequences and we need to be ready to repent. In 1 Samuel 15, Saul was told by Samuel to attack the Amalekites and totally destroy everything that belonged to them. Do not spare them. Put it all to death. Devote it to God. However, Saul and the army spared Agag, the king of the Amalekites, and the best sheep and cattle, the fat calves and lambs, everything that was good, everything that was sweet. And when Samuel questioned Saul about this, he kind of pulled a toddler routine. I saved it for you, Daddy. He claimed that they had held back the best of what was devoted to God in order to make special sacrifices to the Lord. 1 Samuel 15:21. Samuel didn't accept that excuse any more than the parents listening to this would accept an excuse like that from their kids. And that's when he told Saul that he had been rejected as king because he had not obeyed God's voice. Rolling to the New Testament again, Jesus speaks about the fact that we cannot serve two masters, and we must decide. Either you'll hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. That's Matthew chapter 6, verse 24, and Luke 6, verse 13. In the verses that we're going to talk about today, the Apostle Paul advises us to be devoted to one another in love, honor one another above ourselves. Now, here's where the rubber meets the road for us. Devotion of ourselves or our possessions in the Bible and in today's life, that doesn't spring from some kind of mystical experience or some kind of special spiritual energy. It's a clear and willing choice that we make as we faithfully respond to God's words to us, to God's calling on our lives. The Bible speaks extensively about the significance of devoting lives and objects in a right way and warns us of the consequences of pretending to devote them. We have to count the cost, brothers and sisters. We have to examine our lives carefully and ask if we have devoted ourselves or the things that God has given us to serve God or to serve ourselves. I hope the study this evening is a blessing to you as we dig deeper into Paul's teaching in Romans 12 about what devotion looks like.